It's like E major with a added 9 and a semitone.
So that's the chord you like to test of the guitar.
Yeah.
Too.
It's like E major, but you're playing. The middle note goes up a tone, and your little finger's playing E flat.
I see. This one. No, this one.
That finger needs to go there, mate.
Okay.
But that one needs to go back down there.
Like here?
Oh. Where is it?
See?
Brilliant.
Hey! Look at what I'm doing right here. Look at this chord's making me fall over.
Yeah, and you'll have cramp in your left hand for the rest of the day, but it's a small price to pay.
I'm going to remember that one. Oh, what's that?
That's much easier, yeah.
I know you obviously play with King Crimson, which is a band that sort of introduced me to odd time signatures a little bit. And I read some of the words you had about, having the chance to play with that band and how they influenced you.
Well, funnily enough, I was such a big Crimson fan, and I was such a big Robert Fripp fan, because he played guitar like he didn't come from where everybody else came, even as a young kid. You could tell he didn't come from a kind of blues-based pentatonic thing, which is at the time where everybody came from. He came from some other world, and so that was very attractive. And then I read an interview with him where he said the only other guitarist in England worth listening to is Alan Holdsworth, and I didn't know who he was. I'd never heard of him. And I went to see him play with a band called Soft Machine, and it absolutely freaked me out. I'd never seen anybody play like that. So I became quite obsessed with him for a while, and to the point where when I was 16 and I was working part-time in a record shop, and I'd been in the National Youth Theatre, so I'd done a fair bit of acting, and I phoned up at the time he was on a label called Virgin Records, playing with a band called Gong. So I phoned up Virgin Records and I put on this thick Bradford accent, which is where he's from.
Okay.
And I said, I'm an old mate of Alan's, and I'd like to meet up with him because I've just come down from Bradford. And unbelievably, they gave me his phone number. So I phoned him up, this 16-year-old kid, and I said, will you give me lessons? And he said, oh no, man, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't fucking give lessons. And he said, but then he said, you can come round if you like. So for a few months, and I may have exaggerated this in my memory because I can't remember specifically, but it felt like for a few months I used to go around to his house every Thursday.
Wow.
And he showed me all sorts of things. I mean, about equipment, about how because he'd get the soldering iron out. He would muck around and mess around with amps and try and work out what was going on. And I remember him playing records and saying, "Can you hear the compression on that?" And sometimes I would just sit there and play chords, and he'd solo over the top, but he's doing it right in front of me.
Jeez, that's pretty mind-blowing, right?
Yeah, it's extraordinary. An extraordinary thing to have happened. And I got to know him, as a result of that. And so over the years, he would always say hi. And then one fateful day in 1991, I think it was, I got a phone call from Mark King, who's this amazing bass player in a band called Level 42.
Yeah.
And he asked me to join Level 42 as the lead guitarist. And Alan had been doing the job as just to kind of make thing, because their previous guitar player had died, and Alan did these shows. In fact, when I got the live tapes, it was Alan playing all these solos, which is absolutely intimidating.
Is there a certain thing that you picked up from him as far as playing goes that you would?
I guess it's
the top of your head?
The tone, the vibrato, the tremolo arm stuff, and I guess the whole legato, the whole legato approach, where the left hand's doing a lot of the work. So that. I mean, listen, I'm a pale imitation, but yes, I got kind of because it was an extraordinary thing.
Sure. So what would you say if you were to improvise over a certain chord progression? What is your preferred tonality, if you have one? Do you have any sort of proclivity towards any
tonality? I mean, the actual sound.
Sure, like the harmony, the chords that you like to play over. Is there anything in particular that you enjoy?
No, I think for me it's getting to the point where, I mean, I know for years I would just have a guitar with me all the time, and I would, if the radio was on, I'd play along and I'd try and work out what was going on. If the TV's on, if it's soundtrack music, you know. And it's a bit like speaking.
Yeah.
You know, you acquire the vocabulary, but I'm accessing the vocabulary as we speak now, in an incredibly instinctive way. You know, it's a bit like if you ask somebody how are they walking, the minute they start thinking about it, they fall over. Okay. So for me, rather than it being a more kind of structured, scale-based approach, it was much more, can I play over anything? Can I hear those changes as they're happening in my head?
Okay,
so I kind of tried to develop that, you know, rather than, I was never thinking in patterns or in...
That's interesting. So if I play this chord, you played this chord before.
Yeah.
That was all vocabulary.
Yeah, that's me just talking rubbish.
Sounded like very good rubbish to me. Can you talk a little bit about this instrument in your hands? And you mentioned Alan Holdsworth, who can bring it back full circle. He sort of taught you about gear. How do you approach creating a signature instrument? You know, it's like one shot at it.
Yeah, well, actually what happened was when I first joined Crimson, the people at PRS very kindly said, can we build you a special instrument? So they did, and we talked about, you know, the 24 frets, and I don't like over-driven pickups. I like there to be, like, it's similar to a PAF. I don't like the over-winding thing. And the idea of using the image of the first album, and they built this beautiful guitar with a piezo in the bridge, and we repeated the color blue on the back. They put these amazing kind of fluorescent looking inlays in the neck, and it had a stereo out, and then I even put it on the back. There was another detail from the inside of the gatefold sleeve, the original sleeve. So while I was using that, we Crimson do this kind of raw package thing where you get access to the gig early, you get speeches from people, and you get Q&A at the end with the band. And a lot of people started saying, are we ever going to be able to buy this guitar commercially? Yeah. So then we discussed that, and I mean, I wasn't really comfortable about there being a guitar that cost thousands of dollars. Sure. And B, I'm sure they weren't that comfortable on making more than a few, because it's a costly exercise. So then we thought, all right, well, look, let's take the basic idea and make an SE, you know. Mm-hmm. So that's when we redid the artwork slightly to, because obviously the original cover's a gatefold sleeve. Yes. So a lot of the visual information is to the left, not to the right. But of course you want that main part of the image there. Yeah. So that took some time. A friend of mine who's a brilliant album sleeve designer. So we chopped it up and turned it round and put it back on here and then blended it so it goes the other way. And then created that for the factory. And we came up with the slim, thin neck, 24 frets. It's a solid mahogany thing with a rosewood fingerboard, and because we haven't got the piezo in this, like I have on mine, We put a call tap on the...
Nice.
On the,
looks great, sounds great. I have one last question for you. If I've never played guitar before, how do I play guitar in 3 words or less?
How do you play guitar in 3 words or less?
Yeah.
What kind of a question is that? Very, very slowly.